Welcome back to American Agenda. After almost a week of waiting for election results, it is looking like control of the Senate is hinging on two Georgia runoff races. No candidate reached 50% of the vote in either of the races, so now we wait until January for an answer. Perdue or Ossoff, Loeffler or Warnock? Joining us right now to talk about it is analyst at Young Americans for Liberty, Kristin Tate, and lawyer and GOP strategist Ford O'Connell. Kristin, what's your lay of the land there?
Well, look, if Joe Biden does take office in January, these two races in Georgia will be all that stand between us and a radical left-wing agenda. Unified rule for the Democrats would truly end America as we know it. Everything would be on the table. They would attempt to turn this country into a one-party state where Republicans could never win another election. And any left-wing legislation could be passed, no matter how radical. If they do win these races and take the Senate, they could end the filibuster, in which case a Biden-Harris administration would take on the powers of a supermajority. They could give statehood to Puerto Rico and D.C., which would essentially pack the Senate. They could pack the Supreme Court. They could pass significant gun control measures. They could raise taxes for working Americans. They could give amnesty to millions of illegal immigrants that would create a permanent Democrat voting bloc that would also be eligible for welfare benefits. This is all just the beginning. I mean, to paraphrase Nancy Pelosi, we need to give them power to see just how far they would go. So hopefully Republicans in Georgia have woken up and they are ready to go to the polling places and vote, because our country truly depends on this.
This really would make a big difference. And here's another thing, because Ford, I know what some of our viewers are thinking. They saw Loeffler and Collins combined got 46%. And they say, oh, you know, Warnock, the Democrat, got 33%. So this will be a piece of cake. I went down, did all the math on all the votes that were Democrats or other in that race and the other race. In both of these races, the number of Democrat or other party votes were higher than the Republican votes. So they really are at risk for it.
Oh, there's no question about it. They're at risk. I think that Kristin perfectly summed up the actual stakes if the Democrats win both of these two Senate seats in Georgia. But to your point, I think the Republicans right now are not thinking about the Democrats' next move, and the Democrats are plotting in Georgia. Just so you know, Bob, I was actually part of the last Senate runoff in Georgia in 2008 with Saxby Chambliss. And I'm going to tell you, if we're going to win both of these seats, we're going to have to go out to the rural areas, the suburban areas, and literally shake the trees for voters. And let me tell you something else. This thing is almost going to be more expensive than a Republican presidential primary, in the sense that there's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars spent here, because to Kristin's point, this is about the balance of power in Washington and whether or not the socialists and the radicals get a blank check. And how many Republicans actually want to see, every time we take a vote in the Senate, you have potentially Vice President Kamala Harris breaking the tie? If that doesn't make you want to go out in Georgia, I don't know what does.
How is a runoff different, Ford? How does it? Because it seems like when you don't have the president at the top of the ticket and it's January 5th, that the dynamic is going to be different.
Well, I actually did one of these, believe it or not, in December of 2008, and the dynamic wasn't much different. It was the party out of power that was more energized in this case than it was the Republicans. But I will say this, you can't rest on your laurels, because there's a lot of suburban Republicans in Georgia who just kind of think the state is really red, and they don't understand where the demographics are coming in. The reason why we're having such issues in Georgia is the same reason why we were having issues in my home state of Florida, in Texas, where I know Kristin's been, is because people have come to the state of Georgia because it offers so much opportunity and a high quality of life. They have to realize that there's a lot of new voters in Georgia, and they must counteract them.
Yeah, and Kristin, I also went down, I think there are 150 counties or so in Georgia. Ford can either nod or shake his head. I mean, there are a lot of counties, and I was going through, and most of them were Trump, 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 Trump. But the big counties with a lot of people, Kristin, they are very blue.
Oh, that's right. And it's a state whose demographics are shifting radically and whose population is booming. But there is some good news here, even though Republicans are feeling glum right now because the media has declared Biden the winner. And I want to be clear, we don't know yet if Biden is the winner. But even if he does end up becoming president, it's not because voters turned out to vote in favor of the Democrats' platform. In fact, we actually saw a repudiation of the Democrats' platform last week because Republicans overperformed. We gained seats unexpectedly in the House. So if Biden does win, it's because Democrats were mobilized to vote against Trump, not because an overwhelming number of Americans want this radical leftism. So that does give me hope. And hopefully the Georgians who live down there who will be voting, they don't want that agenda either. And there are a lot of folks who probably lean Republican who live in these rural counties who aren't even registered to vote. So the Republicans need to get a massive get out the vote campaign because we know the Democrats will be doing the same. There's a lot of out-of-state money pouring into these races.
Yeah,
I saw
incredible.
that Andrew Yang and his wife are moving down there to full-time, try to get out the Democrat vote. So we can't take the wins for granted, but there are some things that do give me hope here.
Ford, I don't have a lot of time, but which will there be more of, political commercials or Christmas shopping commercials before Christmas?
And Georgia, I'm going to go with political commercials, but I'd probably also say the SEC championship game in college football in Georgia.
Hey, by the way, this occurs to me right now. Thursday is the Masters.
That's exactly right.
So
That's
at least
going to take all eyes off of all of this for the next 4 days in Georgia.
Exactly. At least we got that going for us. My sister lives in Georgia, so a fabulous time there, and maybe it'll seem like spring again there at the Masters. Kristin Tate, Ford O'Connell, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob.